Try as I might, I have nothing witty or clever to say for the start of this, so let's just dive into third level spells for the Pathfinder Arcanist. Hello there everyone, and welcome back down here to the Gamer's Den with me, your host, Jordan, your Master of Lore and Storyteller Extraordinaire. Going on to the next episode for the first edition Pathfinder Arcanist, today we are going to be covering your third level spell selection. And this is where things really start to take off for you. It's not much different from most of the other full spellcasting classes. By the time you hit 5th level, you're getting into your third level spells. You are really starting to tap into what a full spellcaster class is able to unleash on and off the battlefield. Really, you're going to have spells for a wide variety of different situations, so it's really going to more depend on what your selection is going to depend on is going to be more what it is you're leaning into. Are you focusing more on being conjuration, abjuration? Are you an evoker? Are you doing illusion magics? Are you leaning more into necromancy? That's going to affect your feat selection, your the different arcane exploits that you're tapping into. But overall, especially considering the your ability to increase the caster level, you're going to want to look for spells that do synergize with that, spells that benefit greatly from having caster level increases. Though with this build that we're putting together here, we are also able to make a good use of increasing spell save DCs, because so far with everything that we've got going, you could be looking at a total increase of +3 to any spell save DCs. And while a +1 increase might not, it doesn't hurt, but it's not exactly the greatest hurdle to jump over. But a +3 increase, that actually gets to be a little bit harder and makes it much more likely that opponents will succumb to the effects of spells that you're throwing out there. And this is where, like I said, all the different kinds of spells that you get access to, whatever school of magic they may be from, you are going to benefit greatly once you hit these, you and your allies. But before we get into everything we have on offer for you today, and we do have a fair number, if you're new here to the channel, go on down there, hit the subscribe button, and become a regular member here at the Gamer's Den. Or if you've already gone on ahead and listed yourself on that incredible roster of legendary heroes, then go on down to hit the like button and share this video far and wide. Now, let's go ahead and dive into this, and we're going to try to go a little bit quicker than we have been, just for sake of the fact that we do have a number of different spells to cover. And first off, we have Bestow Curse. This is brutal to hit an opponent with. Touch target creature and force a will save or be permanently afflicted with one of the following: a -6 to an ability score, a -4 penalty to attack, saves, ability, and skill checks, or a 50% chance for the target to just take no action. Any one of those is going to be pretty ruthless on whatever opponent you're dealing with. Now, ideally, you don't want to stay in close with a target, but if you're picking the engagement, or if you have been engaged, because as has been pointed out, you cannot reliably avoid combat for the course of your entire adventuring career, this can be an incredible thing to afflict an opponent with. You've got a strong monster coming down at you, well, they are going to be particularly vulnerable to will saves. Hitting them with a -6 to their strength score, or possibly their constitution, or hell, even if you hit their will saving throw and make their wisdom score, they're going to be even more vulnerable to will saving throw spells. Hitting them with a -4 penalty to their attack and all their saves makes them vulnerable to a lot of the other spell effects that you're throwing out there. Or if you can't reliably get away from the target, getting a 50% chance for them to just take no action while you are trying to get away is going to be pretty damn handy all the way around. But speaking of handy, we also have Summon Monster 3. I mentioned it before, but I'll mention it again. Any number of the Summon Monster spells are going to be awesome for you. Any of the summoning spells, even if the creatures you're able to summon are mechanically, mathematically inferior to previous or later versions of Summon Monster spells, you're still putting monsters in positions where you can set up flanking bonuses. If they get attacked, that's attack's not going to you or your party, so on and so forth. And not to mention that even though, say, let's just say Summon Monster 4, Summon Monster 5? Well, in any case, say you come up to a Summon Monster spell that a guide says, yeah, the options here aren't great. Well, with any of the Summon Monster spells, you can typically summon multiples of creatures from previous Summon Monster spells, so that still can make these summoning spells very handy. But Summon Monster 3 allows you to summon creatures at a point within 25 feet plus 5 feet every 2 caster levels. Summon either a Lantern Archon, Leopard, Crocodile, or 1d3 creatures from the Summon Monster 2 list, or 1d4 plus 1 Summon Monster 1 spells. By the time you've hit 5th level, 1d4 plus 1 from Summon Monster 1, maybe not the greatest choices, but if you're dealing with a bunch of chaff opponents, just opponents meant to wear down and use up your resources, they can still work out pretty nicely, because those kinds of opponents are typically depending more on their numbers rather than their raw stats or abilities that they may have available to them. So, depending on the situation and your ability to gauge what the situation is, any of these can be incredible options, but a Leopard, Lantern Archon, or Crocodile, those are going to be some significant help for you. Then we go on from Summon Monster 3 to Sleet Storm. You create a 40-foot radius, 20-foot tall cylinder of driving sleet that appears within 400 feet plus 40 feet per caster level. Absolutely staggering range. That hinders vision, including dark vision, which makes us so awesome already. Creatures can walk into or through the area at half normal speed with a DC 10 acrobatics check. Failure on this check means that they can't move, and failing by 5 or more means that they fall over or fall prone. This will also extinguish small fires and torches. So that DC 10 acrobatics check, it's great if they fail it, the opponent not being able to move, or numbers of targets not being able to move, or even falling over. That's awesome. However, that DC 10 acrobatics check, that's going to drop off pretty quickly. There's going to be plenty of opponents that are going to be able to make their way through that, although you're still going to come across some that are going to be impacted by it. But the big thing is that this is great area control. That any creatures moving through this area, a 40-foot radius is a significant area, they're going to be moving at half their normal speed. There is no save for that portion of it. They just move at half speed, so this is going to eat up a lot of their movement. And the fact that they are not going to be able to see, and this is going to hinder dark vision, makes this incredible. This is a great spell to have handy. Then we have Stinking Cloud. Create a stinking fog that spreads in a 20-foot high area, 20-foot radius within 100 feet plus 10 feet per caster level. This functions like Fog Cloud, except living creatures inside must make a fortitude save or be nauseated until the creature leaves. Then they are going to remain nauseated for 1d4 plus 1 rounds afterwards. This does not allow for spell resistance, it's just saves, and this effect can be made permanent. So if you are looking for ways to help defend your home base, whatever that location may be, this can be a great starter for adding in a permanent form of defense. And because it can be made permanent, you can, over the course of several days, cast this in a wider and wider area. So it's just this wide rolling fog bank of just absolutely fetid and horrendous smells that just absolutely leave opponents or wanderers coming through the area retching and absolutely impacted and impaired. Hold Person is another spell that you're going to want to take a look at. This is targeting a single humanoid creature that's within 100 feet plus 10 feet every caster level. They must make a will save or be paralyzed for 1 round per caster level. They may make a new save each round, which, not great, but they can take no other actions other than just trying to make that save. Flying creatures that succumb to this fall and will of course take the appropriate fall damage. Swimming creatures will sink. Now, for creatures that breathe in water, that's probably not going to be an issue, but if something is trying to swim away that doesn't normally live underwater, that's also going to be catastrophic for them. So Hold Person is a great way to lock down a target or prevent a target's escape. This can make a very dangerous opponent really just all that non-threatening, and because they're paralyzed, they are going to be a fair bit helpless to anybody that comes up next to them. So the party's fighter, party's ranger, barbarian, paladin, whoever, they can get a nice coup de grace and deal some significant damage to the target in that instance. Then we move on to Fireball. Target a 20-foot radius within 400 feet plus 40 feet per caster level and deal 1d6 fire damage per caster level, maxing out at 10d6, with a reflex save for half damage. You want to alter the damage type. I've not been quiet about my disdain for Fireball. I shouldn't say disdain, it's more that Fireball has some significant penalties working against it. For example, fire resistance is incredibly common, fire immunity ends up becoming incredibly common, and the fact that it tops out at 10d6 means your average damage is going to be about, in the 30 range, 30 to 33, somewhere in there. That's where you're going to be landing on average most of the time. So then you throw in the fact that fire resistance is a thing. Well, if it's even just 10, now that damage is down to about 20, and then you have reflex saves for half damage. Well, if they made their reflex save, they're down to 15 damage, and then you throw in the 10 points of fire resistance, the target only took 5 points of damage. Granted, you're hitting multiple targets, so multiple targets may be taking varying levels of damage in this instance, but typically, as you advance in level, they're going to have better reflex saves, and you may be coming across more opponents that are able to make a reflex save and just take no damage, which does a lot to negate Fireball's usefulness. However, with the number of different feats that we have available to us for increasing damage, the different kinds of meta magic feats, you could absolutely pump up those numbers. And then the fact that we have the arcane exploits that let us dive into the wizard's different school abilities. So the evocation school that lets you alter the damage type for Fireball. You can change this over to sonic damage, acid damage, thunder damage, whatever kind of damage seems like it will be most relevant or that you're able to identify as relevant, helps to make Fireball way more useful and makes evocation a much more viable route as a caster. But then we also have spells like Heroism. Touch target creature to give a +2 morale bonus on attack rolls, saves, and skill checks for 10 minutes per caster level. So third level spell, you're level 5, that's going to be 50 minutes. You spend one of your arcane exploit points to boost the caster level on this, you're looking at 70 minutes. That's going to be a significant bonus for whoever you apply this to that is going to last for several combat encounters, making Heroism incredibly useful to you and your party. However, it's not going to be quite as useful as Haste, where you select one creature per caster level, no two of which can be 30 feet or more apart, and grant them a +1 bonus to attack, armor class, and reflex save bonuses, plus 30 feet to their movement, and 1 extra attack at their full attack bonus. So even though we have a lot of meta magic feats to help make Fireball more viable, arcane exploits help to make Fireball more viable, Haste is going to really outpace Fireball for most situations. I mean, just throwing this on your best melee fighters or even the party rogue and letting them get into go to town and do their thing with sneak attacks and flanking bonuses, you are going to help the party put out so much more damage, as well as, giving them a decent boost to their attack score and their armor class. And then the movement bonuses are really going to let them get themselves into position. It's just absolutely incredible how much haste does for you. And haste is one of those spells that is going to be viable unto even late game encounters. Next, we have Fly. Touch one target creature and give a fly speed of 60 feet, or 40 feet in medium or heavy armor, with good maneuverability, ascending at half speed, descending at double speed. Fly is just one of the best maneuverability spells you can throw out there. Absolutely great to have for yourself, for the rest of your party, although I'd say putting Fly on yourself certainly isn't going to hurt things, because your maneuverability, being able to get into a position where you're able to have a good range of vision, will allow you to more precisely place your spells. You may be more inclined to spot different things or different situations with your new vantage point that allow you to become a much more effective spellcaster. Next, we have Displacement, another great defensive spell. Touch target to grant them a 50% miss chance. This lasts 1 round per caster level, so they basically become displaced, indistinct, kind of blurry, like a displacer beast, and it makes attacks going against them have a 50% miss chance. Awesome to have. And then we also have Dispel Magic. Target one spellcaster, creature, or object within 100 feet plus 10 feet every caster level to end an ongoing spell effect, counter a spell, or suppress a magic item's abilities. You must make a Dispel check, which is 1d20 plus your caster level, but this is another instance where you could spend one of your reservoir points to increase your effective caster level and make it more likely that you're going to be able to dispel the effect or suppress the effect, as the case may be. So Dispel Magic, absolutely great to have. Next is Arcane Reinforcement. You add your spellcraft to your craft checks when making magic items. Now, if you're going with the Arcanist to be a magic item craftsman, then Arcane Reinforcement is going to be huge, because being able to pass those craft checks is going to be important, and this also helps make it so that you can spread some of your skill points around a little bit more without having to necessarily invest regularly in crafting, because spellcraft is absolutely a skill that you should be maxing out regularly. So this particular spell is going to be useful in that instance for those kinds of builds. However, if you're not going to be crafting, then Arcane Reinforcement isn't going to be doing a lot for you and is probably not going to be worth your time. However, one spell that is really not going to come up all that often unless you are cross-classing and cross-classing into Monk or another class that has a key pool or chi pool. Another word that I've only really ever read and not heard pronounced, or at least not that I'm aware of, but this is Key Leech. This spell has no effect if you have no key pools, so if you haven't cross-classed into Monk or another class that has this feature, this spell literally does nothing for you. Do not go and get a key pool either, unless you're, ultimately it's your character, you're building whatever is fun and thematic for you. If you want to cross-class into Monk, absolutely go for it. Mechanically, probably not worth it, but, you do you and have fun. It's your character. You steal a point of an opponent's key when you score a critical hit or reduce an enemy to 0 hit points or fewer as long as you have 1 point of key in your key pool. So it necessitates that you maintain 1 key in your key pool, which you probably should be doing if you're Monk or cross-classing into Monk. But this is depending on you scoring a critical hit or reducing an enemy to 0 hit points. Both of those are kind of going to be not necessarily random, but it's going to be a little bit harder to control for that, although this is going to be nice to be able to use to steal key, I guess, but really it just feels like even for cross-classing, it feels like a bit of a waste of a spell slot, because I mean, your various abilities as a monk can be fun, can be nice, but all the way around, this just doesn't feel great. This doesn't feel like a great combination either, because monks are multiple ability dependent. They're very mad. They are very much so a mad class, because no real armor that you're able to wear, so you want to have a decent dexterity score. You're a melee attacker, so generally you want to have a decent dexterity score, especially since you're typically striking with your fists or with monk weapons. You also want a good wisdom score, because a lot of the different monk abilities and your key pool depend on your wisdom, and because you're getting into fights and you're going to generally be up close and personal with people, you're going to want a decent constitution score too, especially since you're lacking in armor. Throw in being an arcanist on top of it, you're going to want a good intelligence score because you're a spellcaster, and you're probably going to want to have a decent charisma score, possibly because your different arcane exploits and some abilities around those are going to depend on having a decent charisma score. So you are going to be depending on every stat being at least okay, if nothing else. All the way around, it's not a great combination. You really don't want to do it. There's just not much more to say about it. This is an extreme example, but still an example of a spell that you really want to avoid. Wizards want to avoid this. Arcanists want to avoid this. Not summoners. Sorcerers want to avoid this. This is pretty terrible, so I recommend avoiding this. And there's plenty of other spells at 3rd level that you want to avoid, but there's still others that are going to be really awesome for you as well. And some that are going to be circumstantially great, but otherwise just generally okay. But what do you think? Go on down to the comments below and let me know your thoughts. Did you like today's video? Did you dislike it? Let me know those thoughts in the comments down below so we can try and engage in discussion. And I checked my missed comments, and holy cow, there were a lot that I did not get notifications on. I gotta be better about checking those. But also, if you've made it this far, then you must have enjoyed something, so why not go down there and hit the subscribe button, or if you've already done that, hit the like button and share the video far and wide. But with all that said, I've been your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire. Thank you all so very much for your time. Good gaming to you all, and you all have yourselves a good night.